his text was provided to the Dutch publisher. His text, which he claims never to have had anything to do with. Let's talk to talkTV's royal editor, Sarah Hewson, on this point. What an extraordinary twist in this, Sarah, because we've spent the last Lord knows how many days quoting Scobie, which has always been nothing to see here, Governor. And today we learn, well, actually, I've just remembered, I did write those names down.
Yeah, let's remember that interview that he gave as this row was unfolding, saying, I never submitted a book with those names in it. Well, that isn't true, is it? Because it has now emerged that he did submit an earlier version, a draft version with the names in it. And there's an interesting word in his article. He said the Dutch publishers, he said early and unclear text was provided to the Dutch publishers in order for them to start work on the translation with the understanding that their translation would be updated to reflect the final version of the book I officially submitted. So he unofficially submitted one, it might appear, Ian. That officially doing some pretty heavy lifting here, isn't it? But what is clear is the theory that we've been working on for some time now, and the assumption that had been made was there was an earlier version of the book that did have the names. It didn't pass the legal scrutiny, and therefore he had to submit a new draft. But the Dutch publishers got hold of the first version. They were working on that, and that is why those names ended up in that first edition of the Dutch book, which has now been pulped. What's really unfair here is that the translators have been taking the flak for this. Two women who were quietly working away behind the scenes doing their jobs. They were blamed initially a translation error. Then it was a misprint. Now we know that those names were written by Omid Scobie in an early version of the book that found its way to the Dutch translators.
And this, frankly, Sarah, is what stinks here, because Scobie's point has forever been, I have no idea how this could happen. He was unequivocal. I couldn't begin to imagine how this could have happened. Well, we now know, his own words, the reason it happened is because he wrote the words. So if he'd have said that to start with, look, I probably did write some names down and somehow it got sent off in the wrong email, we could have all gone, all right, not a good look, mate, but we get it. But he was unequivocal that these names were never said. He never wanted to make these names public. And he said that from noon to night for the last 3 weeks.
And given the significance of the claim being made in the book, and given the significance of these two names appearing in the Dutch version of it, it's not something that you could forget, is it, Ian? It's not as if you can suggest that, oh, well, I did an earlier draft, but I did so many, I'd forgotten what I wrote in which version. This is a hugely significant claim. And of course, it is a hugely damaging accusation to be making. And so obviously it would be front and center. And he does say that he discovered it. He was in the middle of TV interviews in New York on November the 28th, when the name, a single name, he says, appeared on social media, and his stomach flipped. The 403 pages I'd carefully written, edited and signed off to the printers made it very clear that any names would not be revealed due to legal reasons. So he has known this since November the 28th, and we've had so many different versions. But what I find the hardest to take really on this is that those translators were allowed to take the blame for this when the blame is firmly at the door of the person who wrote it.
Yeah, and he sat back and watched all of that unfold, of course. Listen, Sarah, thank you. talkTV's royal editor, Sarah Hewson, with us on the programme.